So with Clash in Paris in the rearview mirror, we are now onward forward to WrestlePalooza. And everybody, from Solomonster to just Alex to JD to just about anybody, is saying that basically WrestlePalooza is shaping up to be a tremendous card. Now, you can't blame WWE for doing that, and it's not just because they want to basically stick it to AEW in the All Out event, which is the same day, but also they want to impress the new streaming partners in ESPN. Now, here's the thing though. When you look at WrestlePalooza, you might consider it as being WrestleMania 41 2.0, or WrestleMania 41, the summer edition, if you will, or the fall edition, more precisely. But why would you look at it like that? Well, mainly when you look at the potential matches, one officially made, that being Stephanie Vaquer against Io Sky for the vacant Women's World Championship, and the other potential matchups you're going to get, like, Drew McIntyre against Cody Rhodes and potentially Randy Orton in a triple threat match, or it's just Drew and Cody in a one-on-one match, and this whole mini feud with Randy is just something for SmackDown only, we'll see. And then on top of that, you got Brock Lesnar and John Cena, in their potential final confrontation and everything. And then on top of that, you have the potential for Roman Reigns against Braun Breaker, or the Usos against Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, with a Roman Reigns return to set up War Games in November, But then also on top of that, you also have the potential for a very anticipated mixed tag team match, or potentially a very anticipated singles match with two women acting as corner women for the respective husbands. And that, of course, is potentially Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins against CM Punk and a returning AJ Lee, or CM Punk against Seth Rollins with AJ Lee and Becky Lynch in the corner of the respective husbands. And that alone would be like the price. It would definitely be worth the price of admission if you have the money to do so. It would definitely be worth the price of admission. And apparently, people are on payment plans. Yeah, they are on payment plans to make this happen. And I think that's one thing WWE did not take into account when basically pricing out these seats for all these events. Like, people are going to pay in intervals, for these seats. They're going to pay or we're going to collect, something like that. So basically, yeah, if you can afford it through a payment plan or whatever, or if you can just straight out pay it, you're going to be in for a treat that day. But why is WWE going all out for this? Well, like I said, two reasons. Sticking it to AEW and also impressing the ESPN streaming partner. But what does that mean overall? Well, it definitely means one thing, and we've seen this before. We've definitely seen this before when it comes to their debut on a new network or a new streaming partner. And that is, not only will they go all out, but they will give people and fans the outcome they hope for. They're basically going to give them the happy ending, or the positive outcome for the time being. Which means basically what you'll be seeing here, more than likely, is Cody Rhodes retaining his championship, the Usos beating Braun and Bronson, and then Roman coming back to save them from a beatdown. More than likely, you'll see Stephanie Vaquer win her first Women's World Championship on the main roster. You'll see that. And then more than likely as well, you'll see John Cena, I'm trying to find the right word to say here, John Cena prevail over Brock Lesnar in the potentially final confrontation. And then you will see CM Punk, maybe along with AJ Lee, triumphs over Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. Or CM Punk triumphs over Seth Rollins for the World Championship, setting up a rematch potentially at Survivor Series, or maybe on the following Raw or something. We don't know. But that's why when you look at why people are talking highly about WrestlePalooza and why it's being stacked the way it isn't just because WWE wants to stick it to AEW, steal the thunder and all that from, with All Out. That's one thing. But it's also to impress the new streaming partners, because you don't want to start off on a new streaming platform and basically look like you've laid an egg and you're just, going to keep doing the same old, shenanigans you've been doing. I mean, there's one thing about Netflix is, they've kind of once in a while gone back to the same old shenanigans, throughout the first year. But once in a while, they've proven that they can be different. They can change. They can get your attention and get you, talking about the product. I mean, when they debuted on the first Monday of the year, they did Seth Rollins and CM Punk. That's a big-time pay-per-view main event match that they should have saved for WrestleMania, but they decided to do it there because they wanted to show that they can think outside of the box and they can deliver when they have to. They can, change. They could be what people expect them to be. And I think you're going to get that same kind of atmosphere. You're going to get that same kind of situation here with the debut on ESPN. Because because if you're WWE, you don't want to detract away the non-WWE, the non-pro wrestling fans who, have ESPN for all the other sports that they're fans of outside of WWE. You're not going to want to detract them away if they, look at what's going to be coming on and think, hey, let me check that out, see what this is about. You're not going to want to basically, push them away by pulling out the same shenanigans and all that. No, you're going to want to basically make a statement. And that's why I think at WrestlePalooza, which is people are going to view as WrestleMania 41 2.0, at WrestlePalooza, you're going to have a lot of outcomes that a lot of fans, feel should be happening currently right now. A lot of people, believe it or not, they're getting sick and tired of the Vision stable already. They're just getting to a point like, just end this stable already, will you? Just have Seth Rollins come out and acknowledge that he's jealous of CM Punk. His hatred for Punk is not just because of what Punk said about the company when he was gone, trying to verbally tear it down and all that, but also it's the fact that he's jealous, and maybe part of the hatred. And again, this would be an interesting way to tie everything together. Part of Seth's hatred is because of what Punk pulled or was a part of in AEW. In that situation there, involving, Kenny Omega, the Bucks, and then later Jack Perry, who, you could have Seth Rollins basically acknowledge, as some of his closest friends in the business that currently don't work for WWE. And again, storyline-wise, you can bring that full circle. You can bring that full circle, which would be, to me, a tremendous, I guess you could say, final chapter to be written, in this rivalry between Punk and Rollins. You could do that. You could do that starting here. You could start that process here, WrestlePalooza, because this could be the event to where, you can't tell me the people at ESPN are not hearing people like, like JD and Just Alex and others complain about the same old stuff. They're basically saying, hey, look, we got to impress these new partners, and this is how we're going to do it. And you could use WrestlePalooza through a mixed tag, maybe Seth Rollins losing the world title, as a means to get to that point. Well, Seth Rollins just finally acknowledges, hey, this is why I hate you. I hate you because everybody considers you the best in the world, that you walked away and they should be looking at me as the best in the world. And maybe even, again, you have him acknowledge, hey, I'm mad at you mainly because of what you did in that other place to my friends, to some of my closest friends in the business, and I'll never forgive you for that. That's one way. That's one way they could do it. You could start that downward spiral for him then, the downward spiral for the Vision here at WrestlePalooza, so that when we get to 2026, you have a whole new clean slate. You're starting out the second season on Netflix. You're starting out the first full official year of the ESPN deal. Of the ESPN deal. Excuse me. Got a little tongue-tied. But you're starting out basically on a clean slate. And what better way to, start that than by putting an end to some things people are complaining about? And that's one way to do it here with WrestlePalooza. Along with John Cena, being victorious over Brock Lesnar, potentially in the last encounter. Having, Stephanie Vaquero become Women's World Champion. Having Cody Rhodes, retain his title and so on. It just makes a lot of sense to it just makes a lot of sense as to why they're stacking things up and why it feels like this card is not just looked at as WrestleMania 41 2.0, but just from the get-go, it looks like it's going to be a card to where you're going to have all the outcomes, done in a positive, babyface mannered way, if you will. So to me, so to me, when you look at why WWE is now suddenly like laser focused on putting on a good product so far, it's mainly because of the fact that they're wanting to impress the new streaming PLE partners in ESPN and show them, hey, we're not going to pull the same crap anymore. That starting with you, we're going to start building to a new crescendo, a new clean slate for 2026. Because again, they'll be entering the second year of the partnership with Netflix, and which is going strong, and they're going to want to keep that going on for beyond 5 years. And then also they're entering the first full-on year with ESPN, and they're going to want to continue making a major impression for them, for them with the product they deliver. So to me, I think that's why when you look at WrestlePalooza, this is why people are looking at it as a big deal, looking at it as WrestleMania 41 2.0, because they could see potentially what the outcome's going to be. And again, you have other matches that have yet to be announced, like potentially Braun Breaker against Roman Reigns, or the Usos against, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, with Roman coming to the raid afterwards after maybe they beat Bronson and Braun. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But overall, at the end of the day, this is going to be the event to where people that do complain of, oh, it's the same old crap again, why won't this happen, or why won't they do this, why do they have to do this? This will be the event that will put a smile on their face, and also put a smile on the face of WWE's new PLE streaming partner, and basically maybe show that, hey, WWE is serious about being the top dog in town, and that other places like AEW, they better either, step up their game, or get the hell out of the business, or get the hell out of the way, get the hell out of the business. You know what I'm saying? And and again, as far as why WWE is doing this, again, Triple H may have said that little comment he did on the Hall of Fame back in 2019, but it's Tony Khan that just kept pushing the button, and he has no one but himself to blame for this. He's no one but himself to blame for this, and now his potential big-time show, which will sell out, the Scott's Trade Center. I think that's what it's called, Scott's Trade Center in Toronto. That show is going to get overshadowed, if not already is being overshadowed, by a WrestlePalooza card that is yet to be truly, officially made. And again, there's just more to come in the next several weeks. More to come, more to build towards as we get closer to it. But again, you look at the lineup. Outside of the one official match made between Valkyria and Sky for the vacant women's world title, you look at the potential lineup here of, the mixed tag, or potentially the one-on-one match, with, CM Punk and Seth Rollins, with AJ Lee in Punk's corner, and Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins' corner, or it's a mixed tag between all four. You look at that, and you obviously see that AJ and CM Punk would come out on top, with that, because again, this is the first pay-per-view, under the PLE banner. So again, they're going to want to do things. They're going to want to start off by, doing the right, by basically letting right conquer wrong, or good conquer evil, if you will. So you're going to want that, you want that moment. You're going to want that one moment, that one historical moment. And then you got that. You got John Cena and Brock Lesnar, with John Cena potentially conquering Brock Lesnar, barely surviving, in there. And then, like I said, you got Cody Rhodes retaining his championship, either in a one-on-one with Drew or triple threat with Drew and Randy. Then you have, the Usos against Braun and Bronson, with Roman potentially returning to set up, War Games, or at least take that next step to setting up War Games. You have all these layers, of potential matches that are basically going to be made official, very soon. They're going to be made official very soon. You got these layers and everything, to where basically it all lines up. It all lines up, ladies and gentlemen, to WrestlePalooza basically being WrestleMania 41 2.0, and just like WrestleMania, most of the time, except for this year, WrestleMania, it always, well, like I said, with the exception of this year, WrestleMania always ends on a positive note. It always ends on a positive note. This year that wasn't the case, but SummerSlam made up for that. SummerSlam, made up with that, for night two, of the event. They made up for that. So basically it feels like it's going to be one of those kind of events to where, again, they're not going to want to drive away any potential new viewers of the product, especially the ones that get ESPN for all the other sports, and then they're going to see this and go like, I wonder what this is all about. People are talking about it, let me check it out. They're going to want to attract them, and I think they're going to do that by basically putting on a show, a product that basically, hopefully gets people to tune in even more later on, like on Netflix and USA and all that, because of what they saw, on WrestlePalooza. So, yeah, basically, I just wanted to come out here and talk about, why WrestlePalooza is being built up the way it is, why people are pretty much saying, or pretty much, if you look, they're not outright saying it, but they might as well, basically viewing it as like WrestleMania 41 2.0, or WrestleMania 41, the Fall Edition. I just wanted to come out here and talk about it, why I believe it's going to go in the direction it's going to go, and everything, and why WWE is making it seemingly, feel like that going forward. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well click on the link in the description at the bottom if you want to go to my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are on what I had to say. I know I may have sounded like I rambled a little bit. I do apologize. I'm trying to do this with opportunities that I have, if you know what I mean. But let me know what your thoughts are on what I had to say, and until next time, I am out.